All right. We are going to get started with Shoftim, the Torah portion for this week. Judges. Torah. All right. Shall we get started? No, this starts at Devarim, chapter 16, starting at verse 18. This week, I will endeavor to go in the right direction when I'm reading a book. Shabbat Shalom, running. All right. You are to appoint judges and officers for all your gates. And this is a complete Jewish Bible I'm reading from. For all your gates, Adonai your God has given you, tribe by tribe, and they are to judge the people with righteous judgment. You are not to distort justice or show favoritism. You are not to accept a bribe, for a gift blinds the eye of the wise and twists the words of even the upright. Justice, only justice, you must pursue, so that you will live and inherit the land Adonai your God has given you. You are not to plant any sort of tree as a sacred pole beside the altar of Adonai your God that you will make for yourselves. Likewise, do not set up a standing stone. Adonai your God hates such things. All right, so we're going to stop there. That's the end of chapter 16. We will be moving forward. We're going to see what Rashi says about it. Many sages say many things about this particular passage. This is Torah study with Rashi. This is not Torah study with the sages. Well, all the sages, right? In the Drosh later on today, more will be spoken about it. So we'll save it for then. But what does Rashi say? All right. Judges and officers. This means judges who pass judgment. Okay? And the word shotrim means officers. Oh, okay, well, all right. These officers who impose authority over people. Okay? Meaning, following the order of the judges, they were with a stick and a strap. Yep, until one accepts upon himself the verdict of the judge. So what are we looking at here? We're looking at a judge and one who actually executes the judgment of the, judges, the Beit Din, if you will. Okay.
So does this imply that court was held at the city gates?
Yes.
So if a city had 4 gates, it would have 4 courts going on?
Well, that's a good question because I don't have an answer for you on that one. Do they have a place at the gates for judgment? Meaning, is it 1 gate? Is it 4 gates? I don't have an answer for you.
Wherever they did this, the elders gathered at whatever gate.
Right.
4 gates, that's a pretty big city, so they would need 4.
And that could be a possibility that they need Right, we're discussing if there was a city with 4 gates, did it have 4 different courts set up in those gates?
So when you see the word gates in the Bible, it might mean more than just gates.
Well, yeah, that would be correct. So in the complete Jewish Bible, it refers to it as cities, like the gates, for your gates in the cities, but they also had courts in the cities themselves, right? So without going into super detail, but that's okay if we go over things more than once, because in the Drosh, I will be speaking of stuff like this. But if we want to know more answers to the questions you're asking, I would say read the Daf Yomi, the daily page, right? This is of the Talmud. Why? Because this past year, what have we been talking about? Sanhedrin, right? Judgments, Avodah Zorah, which, by the way, in this passage we just read, we've talked about, an Asherah tree and erecting a pillar, which is, idolatry or idolatrous signs or things, if you will. So all of that has been really thoroughly looked into by the sages in the Talmud and what in Sanhedrin in and of itself. Well, how many courts were there? Well, what courts were what? How many judges are used for monetary? How many judges are used for adultery? How many, you know what I'm saying? You can see where you have, in detail, how many judges were needed for individual cases, right? Monetary, not necessarily a huge deal in the sense of you need a whole lot of judges, so 3 judges for monetary cases, right? For fraud, whatever, whatnot, right? So it's what we have Makos or Makot, Sanhedrin, Shavuot or Shavuos, depending on your Ashkenaz or Sephardic, right? How you're pronouncing this stuff, right? We're going through Avodah Zarah right now, or Avodah Zarah. All these things in this past year, we've actually been, this, what we just read here is all that expounded in very, very, very detail. So.
It just emphasizes once again that when people like Lot or Mordecai sat in the city gates, they were important
Yeah.
people.
Yes,
Yeah.
if,
They were
right. So,
making judgments and
so it's a good reference, right? So you have the idea of Lot at city gate in Sodom, right? And then what about Mordecai in the book of Esther, sit at the gate, right? Important people, as you said. It's and the reason why they're important is because they judge cases. And if they judge cases, they're got to be important, which that can lead to somebody's head, that can puff someone up if not careful. And then Torah addresses that, and we'll talk about that in the Drash. All right.
And Proverbs 31 that we read each Shabbat at the very end addresses the husband being known in the gates.
Yes, the Proverbs 31, the husband is known in the city gates. It's a good one. I like it.
He had to go to the elders at the gate, to redeem her.
Yep.
Yes, the gates. Yeah, the gates at which that's also a good point in the Book of Ruth. Boaz went to the city gates to settle up with the kinsman redeemer. Yes, exactly. Right, and the judges were there to witness and to judge the case. All right, good. I like it. Okay, so we have you shall appoint in all of your cities or in all of your gates, right? It means in each and every city. For your tribes, this refers back to you appoint. This verse is read, judges and officers shall you appoint for your tribes in all your cities, which Hashem, your God, gives you. This teaches us that we establish judges for each and every tribe separately and in each and every city. Right, and so we have to remember when we're talking about this, even this time, when we're talking about Moshe, the tribes may still have had their bloodline lineage at this moment in time, but we know in the book of Shoftim, pun intended, right? Because there's a book, Judges, Shoftim, right? What happened, right? We had Benjamin, Rabbi Bernstein, may his memory be blessed, taught on this, that the bloodlines were mixed as a result of the populating of the tribe of Benjamin. So therefore, the bloodlines were pretty much mixed except for the Levites, and the high priest. Okay. So when we're talking about in your tribes and in your cities, we're not talking about necessarily a bloodline here. We're talking about an area of land inside of Israel. So when they got inside of Israel, in the book of Joshua and Judges and so forth, when they keep on trying to conquer the land, it's the land area, right? Yehuda gets this, right? Issachar gets this. You can see the land area, right? Yeshua was born in the, in the tribe of Judah. Well, he was actually born in Bethlehem, which is where? In the tribe of Judah. It was a land area. Shaul, Paul, was from the tribe of Benjamin, which is, what city is in Benjamin? And we've talked about this before, Jerusalem. So, yeah, it's quite possible he was from Jerusalem. All right. Okay. Moving on. And they shall judge the people. This is Rashi. Appoint expert and righteous judges to judge righteously. Is what he says here. Right? And you shall not pervert judgment. This is to be understood as it sounds. Basically, don't pervert judgment. Rashi says here, I'm not going to make any other extra. It is what it is. It is what it is. It is what it is.
Self-evident.
It is self-evident. Good. I like it. All right. And you shall not take notice of someone's presence. So basically, when you're saying you shall not pervert judgment, you shall not take notice of someone's presence. So even at the time of the presentation of claims by the opposing parties, right, you're not supposed to take notice of who's who. What does that mean?
Someone's rich or powerful.
Rich or powerful. So the not to be a respecter of persons. So the sages will go off and they would say this. Okay, let's just say this Torah scholar. All right, let's just say, what's the name we would know? Rabban Gamliel the Elder from the Brit Hadashah, a teacher of Shaul, right? Let's just say he was going into a court case with somebody from the Haaretz, from the land, just a normal common person. I say common, it's not necessary. I'm not meaning it disrespectfully, but he's not a sage. Yeah, he's not a Torah scholar, and he's not a Nasi of the Sanhedrin, but let's just say there's a court case going on there. The judge is not supposed to make a deference or a reference or a notice with Rabban Gamliel.
Rags, or if he's in, they can't treat him differently.
You cannot treat him differently, right? And many sages, and I would believe in this, and this is actually at least I think it's in the Talmud, but the sages would say that they would make sure that they would try their best not to make themselves noticeable, right? They would not ask that not everyone stand if he enters the room, which would be the common expression of the day in a court case, or have everyone stand for everybody's. You know what I'm saying? It was for everybody. It would be okay.
This is why our statues of justice have
Yeah.
a blindfold on.
The blindfold on and the statues of justice.
True.
But judges don't wear a blindfold.
Yeah.
Yeah, but judges don't wear a blindfold. Yeah, that's accurate. Yeah. All right. So that would be, just something, because we would say, well, yeah, rich or poor, that makes sense. But what if somebody who is a well-renowned Torah scholar in Israel at that time, which would be, or in Yeshua's time, or Shaul's time, if that was a big deal, you have the Nasi come in. Oh, I got to judge his case. Oh, can I refer to somebody else, please? Please? I would, yeah.
If the judge goes down to get their autograph.
Yeah, if the judge goes down and gets their autograph,
I feel like you don't have as good a chance.
yeah,
Sign my shoe.
yeah, that would be something, because they were talking about it, that sometimes these judges, teachers, would be the Torah scholars that would be in a court case, right? They would be teaching in the morning before the court starts, and then next thing you know, they're in court, and lo and behold, yeah. Okay. You shall not take notice of someone's presence, even at the time of the presentation of the claims by the opposing parties. This is a negative commandment, that he should not, the judge, shall not be pleasant to one of the litigants and harsh to the other, and that he should not have one stand and the other sit. And the judge should not have one stand and the other sit. For when this one sees that the judge shows honor to his fellow litigant, his arguments become blocked, i.e., he cannot express his arguments effectively. Right? It's just like, oh, okay, I see what it is. I don't even know why I'm even talking, because you're not even going to be listening to me because you already went down there and wanted his autograph. Yeah. And you shall not take a bribe, right? Even to judge righteously, Rashi says. Okay. So, you hear the case, you hear the opposing parties. And you pretty much, with all the evidence and the witnesses and so on and so forth, you have your answer. But you think you have your answer. But you're still going through the process. And someone comes up to you and says, look, I will pay you extra to make sure that justice is served. Right? We all know what the answer is, right? We know what the answer is. So despite the evidence that you're given, I will give you extra money to even do it righteously, to even do it correctly. And the answer is you cannot take that bribe. Which, even in today's day and age.
We don't have justice.
Well, yeah. You don't have righteousness or judgment in there. But even if you did, or even if, let's just say you have a crooked judge who's open to bribes, right? Hey, look, the judge can be bought. If you pay enough money, he might go your way. It's still wrong to do so. All right. For the bribe itself will blind. So once the judge, has accepted a bribe from him, it is impossible. It is impossible that the judge should not tilt his head toward the one that bribed him. And it seems like an obligation. You're correct. To pour over the case and find aspects in his favor, right? You're now skewed to try to find the good parts for the person who bribed you. And so righteous words. So when you look at here, you shall not take a bribe, for the bribe will blind the eyes of the wise and make righteous words crooked. Right? So righteous words. This means words that can be justified, or judgments of truth, right? Can be made crooked as a result. So yeah. So verse 20.
Well, even if you bribe someone to give an honest judgment, which kind of doesn't even make sense, but
Right.
if it comes out later on that the judge took a bribe, then the whole judgment comes into question.
It does come into question. The judgment does come into question.
So you're destroying your whole concept of justice
And integrity.
and integrity and everything by having any.
Right. Right. It seems like, that judge would now be forever rendered as a judge that cannot, his reputation is tarnished.
Everything would be questioned.
Everything would be questioned. And then you also look at some of this. What does Hashem think about bad justice? And we'll talk about that later, because he's not good with that. All right. Verse 20. You have, and I'm gonna talk about this in the Josh, but you have a word, two words here side by side. Zedek tirdof. Okay, a favorite verse from Rabbi Bernstein, may his memory be blessed. But it's often translated justice, justice. And also can be translated righteousness, righteousness. In this one, this translation for Rashi, it's translated righteousness, righteousness. But let's say, I believe in JPS, it's justice, justice. Okay. All right. So righteousness, righteousness shall you pursue. Or justice, justice, depending on what translation you're reading. And I'll go into that because actually there is a difference. And we'll talk about it. Okay. Go after, or make a point of going after, to a high quality court. So what Rashi is saying here is that in order to make sure that justice is served, if you have a choice between a court which is reputation is meh versus a court that you know will judge righteously, go with the one that judges righteously, even if it's farther away. You want to go with the court that serves justice. Does that mean it will go well for you? It does not mean it will go well for you. It does not mean that at all. You just know that the judges that are going to be, the Beit Din, will make sure and judge righteously. Okay. So that you will live and take possession of the land. So the merit, according to Rashi, of appointing decent judges is worthy to keep Israel alive and to settle them upon their land. Does that make sense? So basically the idea of what he's saying here is for you to live in the land and settle there and to stay there, appoint worthy judges. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in the Drash because that makes it. Yeah. Anyway, moving on. And you shall not plant for yourself a tree for idol worship. This would be an Asherah in Hebrew. This is written to make him culpable for it, or from the time of planting. So the person shall not plant. In other words, not just put a tree in there, and just don't plant anything like an Asherah tree.
Plan it with that idea in mind.
Yeah, or you don't even plan with the idea in mind. That's a good one, right? And even if this person did not worship the tree that he planted, he violates a negative commandment for the actual planting. Okay.
That goes back to intent.
It goes back to intent, right? It does go back to intent. So Rebbitzin says both righteousness and justice are correct. I'm not saying they're not correct, but she's correct in saying that both righteousness and justice are correct. I'm losing it. But keeping in mind that Steve used to teach that English translations are the least worst words for conveying the meaning, which is correct, because if you have zedek, what does that mean? Well, it means righteousness.
Very righteous.
Means
Wouldn't be like saying
Stronger
truly,
intent.
truly.
stronger intent, righteousness.
Yeah,
It
truly, truly.
and but it also means justice, which righteousness, you're going to be just. We're going to, you guys, you want to give my Josh?
I'm looking forward to hearing it.
Yeah, it's going to sound very familiar because it's going to sound very familiar, like, something that Rav Bernstein would have taught, because he did.
Okay.
Right? Because look, I'm not going to let this man's teachings go away. It has to be maintained, because what he stated, it's absolutely fantastic. Okay.
Is your delivery going to come across as well?
It's not going to come across as well as Rabbi Bernstein's, no. Can I come it off the top of my head like he could? No.
You can take any notes.
Could I have his wonderful smile about it? No, I can't. But the teaching will be there. Okay. All right. Don't plant. Okay. Moving on. And you shall not erect for yourself a pillar. And it says, in a complete Jewish Bible, it says standing stone. So what is that referring to? Right? So,
Well, it made me think about, well, you know, Jacob and Abraham, they
They always
made
made altars,
altars
stone
of
altars.
stone.
they did.
The difference between setting it up this way and laying it down that way.
Well, so we would have to understand how the altars are made, right? When we're talking about, you have altars and then you have like the pillars or how,
Single stone pedestals is what mine says.
yeah, single stone pedestals, or a pillar of a single stone to bring offerings upon it, even for the sake of heaven. Interesting. I'm trying to find where the word I'm looking for. All right. So you had altars. Let's just put it there. You had an altar that actually was made of multiple stones. And then you have a bama. Sounds like bima or bamas. Can't quite nail that word down. Which is a single pillar. Or something maybe like a pole like that. Just something that's of a single stone versus multiple stones.
So all the pagans did theirs that way.
Well, a lot of pagans did do multiples, and they did both of multiple altars. So that's why there's different words, right? You have like the altar itself was made of usually multiple stones, and then you had like the bama would be like the single pillar, right? So there's two different things. But pagans are known for their single pedestal type pillar thing. Stonehenge.
Yeah,
Multiple, but they're single
they're all
lines.
together.
Yeah.
The other basic concept is also used in survey. When they were to identify their properties, they set a cornerstone.
Mhm.
This was a common now, this is where everybody would be involved. This is, everybody's got property, okay, mine goes to that stone, to that stone, and back. So then you step it up to these realms of what are you worshiping, what are you using for worship? But the issue of setting up a stone was already a common other practice. But this is different.
Yeah.
Yep.
Different.
Because God says, don't move a property stone.
That's right.
No, yeah, no, that's a big deal.
So
Don't.
those are okay, and in fact, you're not supposed to mess with them.
Which, so moving on, so this might help. Go and see here, which Hashem, your God, hates, right? An altar of stones, plural, and the altar of earth, he commanded to make, but this he hates, for it was a custom for the Canaanites, right? The Canaanites customarily used it for adultery. And even though it had been beloved by him in the days of the patriarchs, we're talking about the altar of stones, now he hates it since these Canaanites made of it in custom of adultery. And it goes back to Abraham. Basically, where did Abraham live not most of his life, because he got there when he was 75. Well, no, most of his life, I would say. And where did he live most of his life? Canaan, right? In Canaan. And he made altars. Torah says so. And so what Rashi is saying here, at least from what I could tell, is that the Canaanites took what Abraham did and used it for idolatrous purposes. Kind of like what the world does today, yeah. Good one. All right. So when we're talking about here, say in the commentary part of Rashi's book here, although the Canaanites used altars of many stones, their use among them was not as widespread as the use of pillars. And that's from Ramban, Nachmanides, and Mizrahi. Okay. So which heaven your God hates, that follows, that seems superfluous, for the Torah takes for granted that God hates all that is sinful. The phrase is stated to teach us that the verse speaks of a situation which we may have brought is not, which we may not have been. No. Can I read? Yeah. A phrase is stated to teach us that the verse speaks of a situation which we may have thought is not hateful to God, where one brings an offering on a pillar for the sake of heaven. In other words, don't bring an offering to a pillar, not for God. Now, as God, I'm bringing you this sacrifice on this pillar that, according to Torah, I'm not supposed to do, but I'm doing it for you anyway. Does that count? The answer is no, it does not count. All right, so now we're going to 17. Ooh, moving quickly. All right, 17:1, this is a complete Jewish Bible. You're not to sacrifice to Adonai your God a cow or sheep that has a defect or anything wrong with it. That would be an abomination to Adonai your God. If there is found among you within any of your gates, in any city, that Adonai your God gives you, a man or woman who does what Adonai your God sees as wicked, transgressing his covenant by going and serving other gods and worshiping them, the moon or the sun, the moon, or anything in the sky, something I have forbidden, and it is told to you, and you hear about it, then you are to investigate the matter diligently.
Who's he speaking to? Who's supposed to investigate it?
That's a good question. Who is supposed to investigate it?
I guess the judges.
The judges.
Okay.
You're correct. Remember, there's no chapter breaks in Torah. We're all kind of going in the same line. So if we're looking at proximity, right, when it says to investigate, who's doing the investigating? The Shoftim, the judges are doing the investigating. This is Avodah Zarah, and the Talmud in that tractate talks about just that, right? What constitutes this? What constitutes that? Right? And they would actually go in references. It's like, okay, here's a question, right? This is from Avodah Zarah. I can't remember where exactly I believe it's in the 50s. In the tractates of 50 through 60. I'm thinking 54, 55, 56, 57. You would have questions given to sages, like say to Rabban Gamliel the elder or Rabbi Akiva, and the person would say, okay, if Hashem hates idols so much, why doesn't he destroy the idols? That's a good question. But but there's an answer. Well, we do have a choice. But let's just say, what?
He told Israel to destroy them.
Right, but
So he sent someone to destroy them.
but he did. But the question is that it's a bigger question. What? If we are to destroy all the idols on this earth, or is there on this earth, right? Why doesn't Hashem just destroy the idols, right? He had the people destroy the idols. But the question is, why doesn't Hashem destroy the idols?
Well, first of all, he told them to do it in the land.
He told them to do it in the land, that is correct. But we're talking about just like in general, humanity-wise.
I don't know that was a requirement for them to go to some other land and destroy it.
It's not, but we're talking about a debate in regards to just say the world, right? Just say the world has an idolatry problem, which at that time had an idolatry problem, and so a person from the pagan world, from one who is a goy, would say to a sage, "Why, if your God hates idols so much, why doesn't your God destroy all the idols?" Well, you got to have free will, but the question, if understanding how big of a question that is, because we just read it here in this, that there's people that worship the sun, moon, and stars. So what you're telling me is you want God to destroy everything.
There's people who set up a person as a god, like Pharaoh.
Right, people.
Moon and stars.
Right, but yeah, so there's people that worship stuff that, the sun, moon, and stars, as we're reading in this Torah portion. So you want God to destroy everything? Because that's what that's what, if you want God to destroy all idols, Mother Earth, you want God to destroy Mother Earth? Well, okay. I mean, because you see my point of how big of a question it is.
Yes, but it goes back to the parable of the tares. They made the suggestion, well, why don't we just go in there and tear the weeds out?
Yeah.
And what does he respond? Oh, no, there's a time for that. We'll let them go ahead and continue to grow.
Right.
They will grow among the wheat, but in due time, they will be plucked up, thrown in a pile, and they'll be burnt. So God in himself goes, no, we're gonna leave that stand, but in due time, I'll separate it out.
It reminds me of Star Trek,
Yeah.
where Q,
Uh,
anyone knows?
yeah.
And he
Just talking
could
about Star Trek.
grant someone's wish, but they didn't think about all the consequences.
Yeah.
And if we lost the moon,
Right.
sun, and the stars, then there would be no earth.
Well, there would be nothing. Right. So so that's the question. So why doesn't God destroy all quote unquote idols on this earth? We wouldn't have an earth. So what does that mean? So it refers back to not God judging the idols, which are made out of stone and stuff like that. He judges the people who worships the idols, right? And here's another King Agrippa asked Rabban Gamliel the elder something similar to that. Why doesn't he just get mad at the idols? And Rabban Gamliel says, "I'll give you a parable," and I'm paraphrasing. If a king who had a son, this son got a dog, right? And the son named a dog the king's name, right? And people would think they'd be like, or some people would think that, they worship the dog by calling the dog the king's name. So, and the king hears about it. Who does the king get mad at? The son or the dog? He gets mad at the son, right? And so you're talking about the idol worship versus who's doing the worshiping. All right. That is in the tractate that we're currently in right now. Is Avodah Zarah.
We're supposed to tear down all the objects that the people worship.
We're supposed to tear down the objects of where we can, right? But
Yeah, the physical manifestation of the object.
I mean, there were people back in those days worshiping mountains. You want to destroy the mountain?
But they might make little miniature mountains to represent the big.
Well, the
mountains.
pillars or the altars you would remove,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Right? It's like, what about something that's underneath the Asherah tree on a mountain? Right? It goes into that detail in Avodah Zarah. It's very interesting. Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat verse 3. By going and serving other gods and worshiping them, the sun, moon, or anything in the sky, something I have forbidden, and it is told to you, and you hear about it, then you are to investigate the matter diligently. That is a court we're supposed to investigate. If it is true, if it is confirmed that such detestable things are being done in Israel, then you are to bring the man or woman who has done this wicked thing to your city gates, stone the man or woman to death. Right? The death sentence is to be carried out only if there was testimony from 2 or 3 witnesses. Right? And in a Brit Hadashah, Matthew 18, in the presence of 2 or 3 witnesses.
Yes,
If
that's not what it means, what Christians.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, you're correct. Well, if you look actually in Matthew 18, you're actually talking about court cases. They're actually legitimately talking about court cases.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's all it is.
Yeah, and he may not be sentenced to death on a testimony of one witness. So one witness is not enough especially for a death penalty case, much less in anything else. Or you can't have just one witness. You got to have 2 or 3. Which, by the way, why 2 or 3? What's the deal with that, right? So 2 or 3 witnesses. When Rabbi Bernstein taught on this, and the sages teach on this too. What does that mean?
Well, you've got 20 people, let's say, it could be witnesses. they all saw. They're gonna go look for the 2 or 3 best witnesses, maybe of the highest character type things, and
Yeah.
they become the witness.
You're close. You're close. I'd say you're really close. The idea is 2 witnesses, if you have 2, is minimum.
Right.
But if you have 20, like what Jesse's saying, 3 is all you need. Because we ain't got no time to sit here and listen to 20 to 100 testimonies of the same thing.
Yeah.
Get the best 3 that you have and bring it up to the court, and that is sufficient. So when it says 2 or 3, it means 2 or 3 plus, right? Because if you're saying you have 3, it meaning, it means you have 3 or more than 3. Good Shabbos, Slade. So yeah, all right.
But the person, like if there was a crime done,
Mhm.
the person that the crime was done against, are they not a witness?
They are not a
They
witness.
aren't a witness.
They're not a witness.
Happened to them and they say, it was that person, and there's one witness that goes, yep, it was that person.
I don't think so. I think I'm not quite sure the exact answer on that question because I don't want to say anything incorrectly. I'm thinking that 2 or 3 witnesses opposite of the 2 litigants.
Because how do you ever catch somebody that's a mugger in a dark alley?
That's the hard part, right? Right? If a litigant is a witness, which I don't remember in Sanhedrin. So from what Slade is just hinting to me is that a litigant is not a witness. So in other words, the person that had the crime against is not a witness. You got to have 2 witnesses on.
Litigant is always prejudiced, always.
A litigant is always prejudiced.
Well,
Okay,
it's like
that's fine.
They
I
line up, they want to make sure that you know what you're talking about, and so let's line up these people and then.
right.
It's like,
Well, we all think we're wrestling with the Lord here.
But so here's the question. Here's the question, Tammy. Did they have lineups back in those days?
Did they have what?
A lineup.
Line up, no.
A smoked glass where we lined up all the.
And everybody
Especially
says,
if you mean something
Yeah.
nefarious, make sure that's not 2 witnesses.
Right. Well, that's
And then you're gonna get away with it?
well. See, that's the thing. Back then, you had people living in cities. There was a pretty full. If you're living in a city, it's hard to get around without 2 people watching. Number one. Number two, you would know when or when not to go out.
right,
Yeah.
Which then puts the burden on the innocent person.
It just says for them to be careful. You're putting a burden on an innocent person, yeah, but it's just, there's always people out there, right? When you're traveling alone in the field.
But it's like,
But yes, the litigant itself is not a witness. You got to have 2 witnesses outside of that. So, yeah, I get it. You would say that you would think that would be put undue pressure on a person not to walk down a dark alley at 12 o'clock in Jerusalem or in another city that has no street lights back then because there's no electricity.
And plus, of course, are geared to find innocence as
Yes.
opposed to guilty.
Yes.
So yes, the burden is on, you're correct, on the one who's suing, if you want to
yeah.
call it that.
Right, right.
Yeah,
in this day and age, is video evidence of witness?
That's a good question.
That is a good question, because you're supposed to be able to.
We're talking about, is a video evidence now these days a good question?
Examine, how do you
And of
get
course, we don't have a Sanhedrin to actually make that.
They can make it look like anything.
No.
Yeah,
That's why you gotta be careful.
I saw Queen Elizabeth in a 2-piece bathing suit. That's got to be true.
Yeah. Now we're talking about back then, well, not back then. We're talking about just like 10 years ago, would video evidence be a good thing? But now, even in these days of AI, you can really make things
Video
believable.
Evidence also still only portrays one side. I mean.
The angle
you
it's
don't
presented.
Still get to see
You're
what, I mean, it's still just one side.
Right, right. All right. Good talk. All right. So the death, it has to be carried out It said death sentence to be carried out only if there's a testimony from 2 or 3 witnesses, and we discuss that. He may not be sentenced to death on the testimony of only 1 witness. The witnesses are to be the first to stone him to death. Afterwards, all the people who are to stone him. Thus you will put an end to this wickedness among you. So, well, yeah, if the witnesses saw it, understand this, and you would say that that's bad. The witnesses are the first to stone him, which could be literal. I don't know what it means symbolically, but definitely on a literal level, that we probably would stone him. So that's put in evidence on the witnesses, which refers back to the idea of favoring towards life. Right? If you're a witness, hey, look, you're a witness. Number 1, you have to be a solid witness, a righteous witness, right? Number 2, because they're going to make sure that you're a good witness. They're going to make sure you're a good witness or try their best. Right. But by the way, if you fool them and they come to find out you're a false witness, if you are a witness in a capital case, you get the punishment that the other person would have gotten or has gotten. That is an excellent rule, but it works both ways for a witness, right? Understanding this, that for being a false witness, you could get the punishment of the person that you're witnessing against, number 1. And number 2, if you're a true witness and a person is found guilty of a capital case, according to Torah, you're the first to start throwing stones. You're going to be a witness now. I'm going to be right there. Everybody's running to be a witness now.
Like not.
Oh, combine that with the 4 death penalties, which, ooh, yeah, we're not going to get into that because burning. I'll just say you have stoning, right? You have stoning, you have strangulation, you have burning, and then you have that's the burning. But what is the 4th one? What am I missing?
Which ones did you say?
We got stoning, strangulation, burning. Yeah, I'll tell you what burning is.
Oh, I'm having a freaking brain freeze.
Yeah, so am I. All right, so when we're talking about strangulation,
By the sword.
Sword.
the sword, yes. Okay, so it's okay. You're killed by the sword. All right, so that seems all right. But let's talk about this. Is Israel's death penalties. Ready? Strangulation, which is the easiest, quote unquote, death penalty. Yeah, and then you have stoning, which stones.
No, you first fall from a precipice.
Yes, you fall from, and before the stoning, my apologies, you fall from you fall down a cliff of some sort, and if you survive, then you get stones thrown on you. That's stoning, and 1 at a time. And then you have not strangulation, then you have burning, which it's worse than it sounds if you believe that. It is worse. Burning is drinking molten lead. That's burning, drinking molten lead. And it doesn't matter if it goes down or not. So yeah, that's burning, is drinking molten lead. This is Israel, and this is in Talmud. Right? You can find this. This is not. And then killed by a sword. You killed by a sword, and this is in Sanhedrin. Tractate.
Heading or through the heart or what? Fall on your sword?
Off with your head. By the sword. So that you would say if you had your choice, it either would be strangulation or by the sword.
Yeah. What is strangulation?
Strangulation is you have 2 guys on either side of you, and a rope goes around your neck, and they do a tug of war.
Yep. So yes, and when they were saying strangulation, Slade was just saying grab a rope around your neck, 2 people, and they start going opposite ways and play tug of war with your neck being in the middle.
Witnesses would have to do that?
Oh, it only says,
Uh-huh.
only talks about the stone. Witnesses have. Sorry.
All right.
Says it's PG.
Adult ed is PG. Well, yeah. Hey, well, look, we're talking about Shoftim. We're talking about judges. Hey, what are the judgments if it's a death penalty?
Yeah, we went through all this in Traffic Sanhedrin. And
So, hey, you know what? On that great spot, and on that great news, I'll end it here. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
So you said with stoning